If you look into history, and those who know history will see it was Mawdud, it was Imaduddin, it was Nuruddin, it was Salahuddin. The first three were all Turks. Salahuddin was a Kurd, Nizamuddin Mulk was a Persian, and Yusuf Tashfin was a Berber. Because this is the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that the believers are like brothers. الْمُؤْمِنُونَ كَجَسَدٍ وَاحِدٍ, the entirety of believers are like one body. If the head hurts, the entire body feels a source of discomfort. And there was this time, and even today you look, those leaders who were the most vocal in condemning the attacks against Gaza, one was a Turk and one happened to be a Persian. Because of the verses, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that the believers are like one body. And it is sometimes this caring element that we as Muslims, forget. We look into the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You look into the life of men like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and you see how caring they were. In the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, one Muslim prisoner was slapped in the Byzantine lands. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz heard about it. And Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, he wrote a letter to the Roman governor, and he said, before you put this letter down, free him. For I swear by Allah, I will send an army which starts from here and ends where you are. In the time of Mu'tasim, one Muslim lady was slapped in the Byzantine lands, and she cried out, Wa Mu'tasima, oh Mu'tasim. And Mu'tasim was the Caliph of the time. And the Romans began to laugh, and they said, why you call him Mu'tasim? He's hundreds of miles away. You think he's going to come on black and white horses to save you? And Mu'tasim got the news. And Mu'tasim sent an entire army for the honor and the dignity of one woman. And they took this from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The problem is that as Muslims we live off our legacy. We're always speaking about, Al-Quds, Salahuddin, Nuruddin, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Benny Morris, the famous contemporary Israeli historian, he says, when Israel was created, the Arabs were still gloating over their 6th century conquests, the conquest of the Sahaba, the conquest of those who came before us. And this is a serious problem with the Muslim Ummah. We always speak about Abu Bakr, we always speak about Khalid bin Walid, we always speak about Salahuddin, about Nuruddin. We live off our legacy. None of us ever want to become history makers ourselves. And you look at the people like, when you take the name of people like Salahuddin, because they're deeply connected. The longest street in Gaza is called Salahuddin. The longest street. And when we remember these people, look how these people, they cared. This was a sifa and a quality that they had. When Salahuddin, he was about to take Jerusalem, the narrator mentioned that Salahuddin, somebody asked him, he said, Salahuddin, why is it that very rarely we see you smiling? What's the reason? And Salahuddin was, he ruled Egypt. He ruled Syria, Lebanon, and parts of Yemen. And he said, how can I smile? So how can I smile when Quds is in the hands of the Crusaders? Well, where did he learn this from? See, he learned it from his teacher, Nuruddin. None of them were Arabs. They could have said, it's an Arab issue. Let the Arabs deal with it. No, he learned it from his teacher. When Damietta was under siege, and then the Crusaders took Damietta, and Nuruddin besieged Damietta, the narrations mentioned for 20 days Nuruddin fasted. And he said he had so much concern that he could only consume water until his body became weak. And then he was sitting in the halaqah of the scholars and the hadith scholar. And you have these narrations which are called the musalsalat, where they are narrated in a certain manner. And there's one called musalsal bit tabassum. You know, that is narrated continually with smiling. And Nuruddin was sitting in this gathering and the hadith scholar narrated this narration. And then he smiled, because when the Prophet ﷺ narrated it, he smiled. And when the Sahabi saw the Prophet ﷺ smiling, he smiled. And this is how it's what. And then when the Sahabi narrated it to his student, he smiled and his student smiled. And this is how it's always been narrated. Musalsal bit tabassum. And the hadith scholar smiled. And he said, oh Nuruddin, smile. He's waiting for Nuruddin to smile, and Nuruddin's not smiling. And Nuruddin said, you know, I am ashamed to smile in front of Allah. And the Muslims are under occupation. We have become immune to the fact that the Muslims are under occupation. And I say this by Allah, seriously. And the brothers will bear testimony. All those brothers who have been to Gaza, the slap in the face is not in the slap in the face of the Gazans or the Palestinians. It's ours. You call yourself Muslim, we call ourselves Muslim. 1 billion in number. 1 billion in number. And look how we've been humiliated. Because their humiliation is our humiliation. For them, their status is being elevated by Allah. Their status is being elevated. They're under occupation. They're fighting their corner. But the slap in the face is ours. These people have an amazing resolve. I mean, brothers are here who've seen their resolve. Every person that you speak to, you know, they say, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. You know, the brother Sheikh and them lot went to see a brother who had lost 5 daughters. Can you imagine 5 daughters? You've all heard the story, all Muslims have heard the story of Khamsa on the battle of Qadisiyah, when she had 4 sons. They were in the prime of their youth. And she told them, you know, tomorrow, listen, I want to see a sacrifice. Go into the battlefield where you're covenanted. I don't want you to come back. And every one of them went into the battlefield and they were martyred. And when she was told, she said, all praise be to Allah who has honored me with their martyrdom. We hear these stories. And you know, it's our legacy. But in Gaza, you have people who revived the Sunnah. The brothers went to see a brother who had lost his 5 daughters. And they mentioned that, you know, when he was telling the story about his eldest daughter, that she was very loving. And she was loved in the community. And every day how she would sleep is with her 2 arms around her younger 2 sisters. And he said, when the bomb fell and we regained consciousness, we removed the rubble. And this is exactly how we found her. And the brothers who heard it began to cry. And the father who had lost 5 daughters stood up. And he said, oh, he's consoling the brothers who are crying. The father who's lost his daughters. And he said, oh brothers, have sabr, for they are by Allah in Jannah. And then he had a daughter who was 16 days old when her sisters passed away. And she picked her up and he said, I swear by Allah, she is Allah's. And if Allah wants to take her, Allah can take her as well. Now, you don't find people like that anywhere else. These are people of Iman. If it was anybody else, they would have cut and run. You heard the story of Yusuf ﷺ and his father Yaqub, that he lost his son and he cried so much that he went blind. The brothers met a lady there, that her son had been in prison for 15 years, never seen her son for 15 years. And she had cried so much that she had gone blind. You know, the brothers went to a sister whose husband had just passed away. Just months before that, she had 6 children, 6 yateens. And they went to give her money. And she refused to take the money. She said, up the road there is somebody else who is in more need than I am. If it was one of us, we would have said, let's keep it for a rainy day.